We're joined from Cairo by the senior advisor at the European Institute of Peace, His Excellency Ambassador Hesham Youssef. Good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. And we've all followed the role Egypt has played and the great efforts exerted in order to achieve the Gaza ceasefire. Now, how do you assess those efforts, the role of Egypt, and how do you think the world perceive Egypt's role?
Thank you for having me. The role of Egypt has been instrumental in relation to Gaza for decades, so this is not new. However, the war that came as a result of the 7th of October was different from all previous wars. And this is why it required a coordinated effort and concerted effort by a number of players. So Egypt's role, as I mentioned, was instrumental, but it couldn't have done this on its own. It required help by other countries, including Qatar, Turkey, and the United States.
Right. If I may ask you here about President Trump's upcoming visit to Israel and Egypt, and what will it have on the regional diplomacy?
Well, the role of the United States is also crucial. Without the U.S., we wouldn't have reached what we have reached. But the role of the U.S. has to be taken for better or for worse, because the U.S. also is not really a balanced player in this situation. We have seen how it has agreed with a number of Arab and Islamic countries on all kinds of things. And then when the administration met with Netanyahu, they made some changes. And this resulted in concern by a number of Arab countries, and this concern was voiced publicly. We have also seen the United States being the only country in the world supporting the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. That is, a foundation that was supposed to provide humanitarian assistance, but instead the result of its efforts was to kill Palestinians that were going to seek humanitarian assistance. So the role of the U.S. has been mixed throughout this whole process. It has helped at some times, but it was also biased to Israel to a great extent that was detrimental to the whole process at other times. We hope that the visit of President Trump to Egypt and the summit that will take place will provide a huge push, not only for the continuation of the ceasefire, but for what is even more important, which is trying to see how peace can be achieved in a much more sustainable way on all kinds of fronts. And of course, not only for the West Bank, but also for Gaza, but also for the West Bank and for the Palestinian question as a whole.
And that's the other question, Your Excellency. If I may ask you here about the Sharm el-Sheikh summit, and how do you think this summit would advance the goals of the peace agreement at large? And we're not speaking just about the Gaza crisis, but we're speaking about the Palestinian cause at large.
Well, that is, I have to admit, I don't expect that much from this summit in relation to this issue, because this issue has a lot on its plates already. It is about maintaining the ceasefire,
but
making sure.
It's just a point to advance with other negotiations. So will it be able to advance the upcoming negotiations on the other phases that will be later discussed?
Absolutely, but the most pressing issues are issues related to early recovery in relation to the issue of security and having the stabilization force, allowing Israel to make another withdrawal from the parts that it is occupying in Gaza and so on. And the day after in relation to the governance of Gaza. So these are all very pressing issues. So sadly, what is urgent will take over what is important. And what is important, as you said, is the Palestinian question and resolving the Palestinian question. But sadly, the focus will continue to be on the most pressing issues in relation to what needs to be done next in Gaza. And as a matter of fact, we also have to admit that the West Bank has been ignored, despite the fact that it is also passing through another kind of hell as well in relation to settler violence, in relation to settler activities, incursions, demolishing homes, and so on. So I agree with you that this is needed, but I would hope that this would be the case, but I have my doubts that this will materialize because the focus will be on the immediate needs of the continuation of the ceasefire and the next steps in the Trump plan.
Now, so we've all followed the Egyptian humanitarian operations, which continued during the past period and throughout the Gaza crisis. How do you think those operations influenced the international perception of Egypt as one of its regional leadership, and particularly at this very particular area?
Well, since the war started, Egypt has indicated that it is willing to become the hub for humanitarian assistance. The problem was not in Egypt, and the whole world understands that. The problem was in Israel. And as a result of the practices of the Israeli government, we have witnessed starvation in Gaza. So despite all the efforts that was done by Egypt and other countries around the world, whether in the region or beyond, we were unable to stop the starvation in Gaza. And even President Trump himself acknowledged that there is starvation. So we can't say that the world has been successful in relation to humanitarian assistance. Yes, Egypt has done as much as it can, but all what the world has done was not enough to stop the starvation in Gaza because of the Israeli practices. We hope that as a result of the current ceasefire, that Israel will abide by its commitments. It didn't abide by its commitments in relation to humanitarian assistance after the ceasefire in January 2025. So I hope that this time it will abide by its commitments in relation to humanitarian assistance, because the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains devastating, whether it's in relation to food, water, healthcare, you name it. The situation continues to be devastating, and the hope that this would be reversed as a result of this ceasefire, and as a result of the seriousness in which President Trump is showing in advancing the situation forward. So this issue of humanitarian assistance as well as early recovery, and hopefully not in the distant future in relation to reconstruction, will become the crucial dimension of the effort in the months to come.
Now, another important issue was Egypt's firm stance against the displacement of the Palestinians from their homeland. Now, how do you view the significance of Egypt's stance, and what is required from the international community to support this stance till the end?
Well, I think this was a huge success to Egyptian diplomacy because from day one, it has indicated that this is a red line. And I think nobody supported Israel in its effort to have mass displacement from Gaza and also from the West Bank, except the United States as well. By the position that was adopted initially by President Trump, asking for building a Riviera and asking for the Palestinians to leave. This has been reversed by the U.S. And now the U.S. in its latest plan indicates that not only people will stay in Gaza, but those who leave should be allowed to come back. So, and this is significant and important. Now, what the international community needs to do is to make sure that people have hope. And hope will not come except when they feel that Gaza will witness a reconstruction plan that is commensurate with the level of destruction that it has witnessed, which is around 90% destruction of the whole of the Gaza Strip. So we hope that the international community would be willing to support the Palestinians in reconstruction in all kinds of ways. The question is not only in relation to finance, but also in relation to putting pressure to bear on Israel, because Israel has always hindered reconstruction, recovery efforts. And, if it has hindered all the humanitarian assistance, what do you think they will do with reconstruction? They will continue to argue that these materials may be used in different ways and etc. to hinder reconstruction, because reconstruction will provide hope to people, therefore they will stay in Gaza. But Israel continues to aim at, forcing the Palestinians in all kinds of ways to leave Gaza Strip and the West Bank, as a matter of fact.
Right, looking ahead, what steps are needed to ensure that the Gaza ceasefire evolves into lasting peace from your point of view?
Well, the road ahead is very challenging and very complicated.
Yes, indeed.
So, if we just talk about the security issue, okay, what is the mandate of the forces that would go? Would the mandate be to protect Palestinian civilians? Or will Israel insist that the role of this force is simply to disarm Hamas? Will this be an easy proposition? No. What about what will happen to the tunnels? Will Israel be convinced that the tunnels have all been destroyed? It's not that easy, and so on. So the challenges are huge. But as we discussed, the question is, yes, we have to advance further on all these issues in the coming months, but we have to keep in mind that stability will not be achieved without a two-state solution and without having the final settlement that would be satisfactory to the Palestinians. Otherwise, this region will not see any stability.
Now, Your Excellency, we've seen the invitation of President Sisi to U.S. President Trump to come here, and from the United States, the U.S. President said that he would call for a global summit here in Egypt. What do you think this reveals about the U.S. intentions for the upcoming stage, and what do you think? How do you think Israel would respond given the divide inside the Israeli coalition government itself?
Well, I think this is extremely important. And I think that this is something for the credit of President Trump, because he will also hear that all these leaders that will come will tell him that you should focus on the two-state solution. And this is what happened during recently in the General Assembly in the UN, when there was the meeting that was co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and France, where the message was very clear. The route has to go through a process that would lead to the establishment of a Palestinian state. And they have also a number of key countries in the world, including two key members of the permanent members of the Security Council, France and the UK, recognize a Palestinian state. So this is the movement where the international community is going. And it would be important for President Trump to hear this from all the leaders who are going to come and all the representatives who are going to come. And Israel also. This is important for public opinion in Israel to listen to all these people, for them to understand that in order for them to achieve the security that they all aspire to achieve, they need to have a settlement with the Palestinians that is according to international law, not according to the whims of Israeli coalitions, because international law is very clear on where this conflict has to end.
Right. That was His Excellency Ambassador Hesham Youssef from Cairo, the Senior Advisor at the European Institute of Peace. We thank you so much